What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel for another episode of the Ask Me Anything series. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. This might be the last episode before the playoffs, which is crazy. The season has just flown by. I want to thank you guys a ton for all of your support this season. It's been a lot of fun, but I am really excited and ready for some playoff hockey. I'm sure you guys are too. We have a ton of awesome questions for this week's episode. As always, huge thank you to every single one of you who took the time to come up with a question and leave it on the post. Even the ones that don't get featured in the video, just know I read every single comment and I appreciate all of you guys. So the first question of the episode comes from Master Your Money, who says, what's one team that won't make this year's playoffs that you think could make next year's, and one team that is going to make this year's playoffs that you think might not make it next year? And also really appreciate the support. One team that it's looking like they're going to miss this year that I think will make it next year. This is kind of an easy answer, but the Florida Panthers, last year's President's Trophy winners. Obviously this season has been a complete disaster for them compared to the expectations that everybody had for them coming into the season, and I'm sure the expectations that they had for themselves. The Panthers will have some cap space in the offseason. Patrick Hornqvist's $5.3 million is coming off the books. The buyout penalty for Keith Yandle is also going to go from $5.4 million roughly down to $1.25 million. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what they decide to do, but wouldn't be surprised at all to see them back in the playoffs next year. And for a team that it's looking like is going to make the playoffs this year that I think could miss next year, I'm going to go with the Winnipeg Jets. They currently occupy the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference, 4 points clear of the Flames for that spot. It's looking like this is where Winnipeg is going to finish the season. Basically, ever since the first 2 months of the season, the Winnipeg Jets have been a pretty mid team. They got off to a really good start, and ever since then, they've really just been able to keep their heads above water enough to squeak in and hold on to one of those wildcard spots. Blake Wheeler's going to be a year older next season. We're unsure what the future holds for Pierre-Luc Dubois at this point. He's an RFA this summer, but it does still sound like he wants to get traded to Montreal. None of their important core players are pending UFAs. In all likelihood, they're going to be bringing back a very similar team next season, but based off of how the second half of this season has went for the Jets, I wouldn't be that surprised to see them miss next year. The next question we have comes from Donkey Kong Enjoyer, who says, what are your thoughts on the NHL's deal with Fanatics? Do you collect jerseys or have a few? Which ones do you have and are your favorite? And also really appreciate the kind words, that means a lot. Answering the second part of your question first, I do collect a few jerseys, mostly just Red Wings ones though. I would say my favorite is I have a autographed inscribed Lucas Raymond jersey, which is probably like the main piece of my collection. And how do I feel about the Fanatics deal? I have the same feelings as I'm sure all of you have. I'm concerned for sure. I'm not a big fan of Fanatics. The NHL gear that they've made up until this point, especially the replica jerseys that they have been making, are awful. With that being said though, I am gonna head into this with an open mind. You have to imagine Fanatics isn't just going to have the on-ice jerseys look like the replica jerseys that they've been making. I'm sure they're gonna make dramatic improvements. There are many other brands I would have preferred over Fanatics. I really loved the job Adidas did, but it was clear Adidas wanted to move on and not be a part of it anymore. I think CCM does a really good job making the CHL jerseys, but obviously we don't know if brands like CCM or, for example, a brand like Nike would even be interested in being the NHL's jersey sponsor, so who knows. Moving along now, the next question comes from Yanni Pekka. Hopefully I said that properly, but the question is, if there finally was an award for the best defensive D-man, who would you give it to this season? And also really appreciate the support. This is actually a really tough question. I feel like there's a ton of really underappreciated defensive defensemen in the NHL. One guy I'll mention who I think is having a really nice season is Ryan Graves of the New Jersey Devils. He's a plus 27 on the season. Among D pairings that have played 700 or more minutes together, the only D pairing that has less expected goals against than Marino and Graves is Cale Makar and Devin Tays. Another player I'll mention is Ryan Lindgren of the New York Rangers, another guy who I think is probably underappreciated league-wide. Amongst Rangers fans, I'm sure they all appreciate how important he is to the team, but he's almost the perfect complement for Adam Fox. Lindgren is really a rock defensively, so Graves and Lindgren are guys that I'll throw out there, but obviously there's a ton more. Moving along now, the next question we have comes from Josh Dimpleson, who says, we're a few weeks past the trade deadline now, so after players have had time to acclimate to their new teams, so which player has made the most and least success on their new team? I was thinking Verana or Beauvillier for most and Horvat for least, and also really appreciate the kind words. For least or most underwhelming, I think you hit the nail on the head with Bo Horvat. That would be my answer. And for best, I think Anthony Beauvillier would definitely be in there. Rasmus Sandin has definitely made the most of this opportunity to go to the Washington Capitals and play much bigger minutes than he was getting in Toronto. Dmitry Orlov is another one. He's been a beast with Boston, almost a point per game through 15 games. And like you mentioned, Jacob Vrana for the St. Louis Blues. Considering how little St. Louis gave up to bring him in, he's found his finishing touch. That's definitely a really good one. Next up, this question comes from Barry Neal, who says, do you think the playoff teams are more or less locked in? Is there any teams who have a chance of squeaking in? And also really appreciate the support. If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say there's like an 85% chance that the 16 teams we currently see in the playoff picture are going to be the 16 teams that make the playoffs. Looking at the Western Conference, like I mentioned earlier when talking about the Winnipeg Jets, they currently occupy the second wildcard spot, 85 points with 8 games remaining. The Calgary Flames have the same amount of games remaining, but only 81 points. 4 points is a lot to make up with that few games left. The Nashville Predators are 5 points back of Winnipeg, but they do have 2 games in hand, so if they win those 2 games in hand, they could make things interesting. And in the Eastern Conference, Florida definitely still has a chance. They're 3 points back of Pittsburgh for the second wildcard spot. Those two teams both have 9 games left, and they could also still catch the Islanders. They have a game in hand, but they're 4 points back. I'm definitely rooting for teams like the Panthers and like Nashville out west and like Calgary to keep winning because it makes the end of the regular season very entertaining. I hope it comes down to the last day, but if I had to guess, I think all of the teams currently in playoff spots are going to be the teams that make it. Moving along now, the next question we have comes from Gabriel, who says, can you do a simulated draft pick lottery and see which bottom 5 team will prematurely win it? I can definitely do that. I got Tankathon loaded up here, and we will simulate it 3 times, and on the 3rd time, that is the team we'll go with. So 1, 2, and 3. So this has the Chicago Blackhawks moving up 2 spots and getting the first overall draft pick. Then we got San Jose, Columbus, Anaheim, Montreal rounding out the top 5. So in a little over a month, we will see how close the actual draft lottery is to the one that we just simulated. The next question we have comes from Ben Reeve, who says, keeping in mind that having a singular franchise or generational player to build around does not guarantee success, Oilers and Leafs, if you could pick which franchise is most appropriate to build around Connor Bedard, having several key pieces, including a generational piece, Crosby or Kane, etc., can work well, all things considered. And really appreciate the kind words. I really believe a team that would be set up tremendously if they can get Connor Bedard is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They already have a star in Johnny Gaudreau. You have Patrick Laine as well, and then a really good young core that includes the likes of Cole Sillinger, Kent Johnson, David Jiricek, Kirill Marchenko, who's 3rd among rookies in goals this season with 19. Also, I didn't even mention somebody like Zach Werenski, who's a beast and has obviously been out for the majority of this season. If you add Connor Bedard to that core, I think that team could be a powerhouse. Next up, this question comes from Hayden, who says, Raphael Harvey-Pinard has been a pleasant surprise for Habs fans this season. Do you think he's a full-time NHLer next year? And if so, what kind of role/season will he have? I think he could be a serviceable top 6 winger with a 50-point, 20 to 25 goal potential. Love to hear your thoughts. I think without a doubt, he is going to be a full-time NHLer for the Habs next season. 17 points in 29 games this year, 12 of which are goals. Just recently had a hat trick. Obviously, I don't expect him to shoot, 25% across a full season. My expectation for him, if he plays a full season with the Habs next season, I think he can be a very good contributor in the middle 6, score between 15 to 20 goals, maybe 40 to 45 points, in the same ballpark as what you would expect from him. Harvey-Pinard has definitely been an amazing story for the Canadiens this season, and I don't think it's just a flash in the pan either. I expect him to continue to be a really solid contributor for them. Moving along now, this question comes from Leg, I think. Great, you're still there. Was already starting to miss your top-notch content. Yeah, I apologize for being kind of MIA and just not uploading consistently at all over the past really like 2.5 weeks at this point. This kind of happens to me every year after the trade deadline where there's just so much news, so many videos, and then I kind of get burnt out and take a little bit of a break up until the playoffs. But if you want the most content possible from me, be sure to go and subscribe to my second channel, which is Oh Night Clips. Link to that down below in the description. You can also find it on the channels tab tab of this channel. We're almost at 4K, so go subscribe to that channel if you're interested. But continuing on with the question, I guess my question arrives a bit late, but why would you say so few analysts are talking about Jordan Dumas? Second year above 100 points, only other kid not even a year older, more like 9 months than Bedard, racking up similar numbers on a similar level league. Shouldn't the fact that Columbus could very well end up with 2 of them in a few weeks terrify the whole league for years to come? This is a really good point. Jordan Dumas has been absolutely destroying the QMJHL this season for the Halifax Mooseheads, and it's not like he's doing it in his second or third year after being drafted. This is Jordan Dumas's draft plus 1 year. He was a third-round pick by Columbus in the most recent draft. He's up to 140 points in just 64 games for the Halifax Mooseheads. That is a franchise record for Halifax in terms of points by a player in a single season. Obviously, the Mooseheads have had guys come through the organization like Nathan McKinnon, Jonathan Drouin, Nikolai Ehlers, Timo Meyer, Nico Hischier. As somebody who lives in Halifax and has watched Jordan Dumas play live multiple times, like, he's unreal, incredibly skilled. I really don't know why he doesn't get a lot of attention. Like, even me, I forgot to mention him when talking about Columbus's young core earlier in this video. He didn't even make Team Canada's World Junior team this year. A few reasons why. Maybe he's not viewed as one of like the top-notch NHL prospects. He is a little bit undersized, 5'9", but I mean, it's 2023. I feel like that's a thing of the past. Another reason could be the Halifax Mooseheads are an absolutely stacked team, and he's not the only player on the team lighting it up. Josh Lawrence has 50+ goals like Dumas, so does Alexander Doucette. So would he be putting up these kind of numbers if he was playing, you know, on a bad team in the CHL? Who knows? But I feel like 140 points in 64 games is kind of undeniable. I'm a big fan of his. And now finishing off this week's episode with the question from Ethan, who says, not hockey related, but are you excited for the start of baseball right around the corner, or even interested in baseball at all? Tigers fan, question mark. I actually am really excited for the MLB season. I just really started to get into baseball last year. I am a Blue Jays fan. This is really like the first year where I'm really like counting down the days till opening day. I'm just really excited to see them play. I'm also really having fun playing MLB The Show 23, which just came out. I've been absolutely gaming that over the past couple of days. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm definitely pumped for baseball. So that is going to wrap up this week's episode of the Ask Me Anything series. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did and you want another episode next week, then be sure to leave this video a like. That is the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year long, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all soon.